Hi everybody! So today I want to talk to you about omega-3. And the first thing to say is that omega-3 isn't one thing. I know that a lot of people throw the term around now and people get confused and think it's just one thing, but omega-3 actually refers to a category of fats, and all it really tells us is something about the chemical structure. So we find the functional group in the fat at the third branch. That's literally all it tells us, in the same way that omega-6 tells us that it's at the sixth branch and omega-9 tells us at the ninth branch. So what we need to know when we talk about omega-3 is where it came from, and then that tells us what form the fat is in. So if it came from fish, it will be one of two things. It will be EPA or DHA, or it will actually usually be a combination of the two. And those forms we can use straight away. They are how we need them, all done and dusted. If we get it from flaxseed oil, however, it's in a form called ALA. And through a series of enzymatic pathways, our body can convert ALA into EPA and DHA. It seems that what first happens is the ALA becomes EPA and then becomes DHA, because when you increase ALA in the diet, it doesn't have a significant effect on DHA as it does on EPA. So that's what it seems to say in the science, but that's not a big deal. What I would be thinking about is that some people, that enzymatic conversion works really, really well. They have no problem. Others, however, find that they have genetic variations or those enzymes don't work as effectively, and that then means that they might need to think about supplementing, because we really need omega-3 in our diet. It's incredibly important. It's anti-inflammatory, it supports things like our heart health, people use it in sort of helping with diabetes. We really need to have our omega-3. The other thing to note is that if you're only having plant-based omega-3, so if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, that there is another fat, or omega-6, that can inhibit the conversion. And omega-6 is in things like vegetables, which I would hope by now people wouldn't be using. But the other thing that is really rich in omega-6 are things like our nuts and seeds. Now, this is not to say in any way that people should stop eating nuts and seeds. They are really, really important, especially for somebody following one of those diets, because they are rich in vitamins, minerals, healthful fats and oils, plant-based protein, you name it, we need them. What we need to think about, though, is the ratio between the two fats. So we want to make sure that if we're having a lot of omega-6, we need to account for that by really increasing that omega-3 intake, so making sure that really good quality flaxseed oil is in there just to counter, and then we know that we won't have a problem. The other thing about flaxseed oil in particular is because it's so brilliant, it's obviously exceptionally vulnerable at the same time. So all those wonderful actions it has in our body can very quickly be turned around if it's exposed to oxygen. So what we always want to do is we want to look for a really lovely organic cold pressed product. I talked a bit more about this in my video on fats and oils, so you can check that out for a little bit more info. But it also should be kept away from oxygen as much as possible, kept in the freezer. And I always tell my clients that actually if you buy a bottle, it's best to decant it into other little vessels, then only use them one at a time. So every time you take it out to use a little bit, you aren't exposing the whole bottle to oxygen, you're only exposing a little bit. And that's a brilliant thing to do. Never ever cook with it, never heat it up. Make things like fresh salad dressings with it and use them in one go. Same with fresh pestos, add them to smoothies. Smoothies are probably the easiest way to get it in, or just mix it in something like a bit of yogurt, or just have it as a snack, that kind of stuff. No problem. The other thing to bear in mind about flaxseed, just whilst we're talking about it, is it has many other wonderful things about it. So it's brilliant for our digestive health. If you have things like constipation and diarrhea, it's very soothing for the gastrointestinal tract. Wonderful. It can be used for people who have diabetes. It seems to show that there are the fibres in there that support blood sugar regulation within the body. Same for supporting our heart health. And the one thing that as well that we find it's really brilliant for is if people have things like dry eyes or dry mouths, it can be very soothing and calming for that and help to lubricate those kind of things. And blepharitis in particular, that inflammation in the eyes, wonderful flaxseed oil, absolutely get that in there, not in the eye, to have internally, and that seems to really, really help. So overall, we all need omega-3. You need to think about where it comes from, and you need to think about your ratio of intake in comparison to other foods. If you want to talk about supplements, that is something slightly different, but you always want to make sure that, especially if it's coming from something like fish, that you're getting it from a small fish, and it's nice and pure. If you're going to eat your oily fish, like a about 3 or 4 times a week, you should be all right without a supplement unless you have a really inflammatory condition. So that would be your sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, herring and trout. Get a few portions of those in there and you should be all sorted. And if you're going to have your flaxseed oil, look after it very carefully and just bear in mind that whole flaxseed aren't the same, because the fibre on the outside, that will protect the oils in the middle. They're great for digestive support and helping to get things moving and training our intestinal muscles, but you won't be getting those oils. If you grind them fresh, however, you will have more access to the oils on the inside and you get a bit of fibre, so that's a good bit in between. But like I said, if you're having a totally plant-based diet, you need that pure flaxseed oil in there to get your omega-3. As always, ask me any questions, send me any direct messages. I'll pop all my details below and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. Have a great day, guys. Bye.